Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on Access Solar. It's the pre-submission webinar for the solicitation that was issued on April 21st. We still have participants logging in, but in respect for everybody's time, we'll get started. My name is Ron Reisman. I'm the New York City Solar Partnership Program Manager at Sustainable CUNY. Sustainable CUNY has been supporting NYCHA for a long time in its solar initiative, and we're delighted to be able to continue to support them with this current solicitation. So we'd like to get started. First, let me just give you an idea of the agenda for this 1-hour session that we'll be having. After I'm done with a few housekeeping announcements, we'll turn it over to Siobhan Watson, who's the Deputy Director of Sustainability Programs at NYCHA. She'll provide a brief overview of NYCHA and its sustainability agenda. Then we'll hear from Christopher White, Program Manager in Asset and Capital Management, as well as his colleagues Egan Wagoner and Claudette Pichardo, and they'll be doing a deep dive into the solicitation. And then finally, we've reserved the last 20 minutes of this webinar for your questions. Speaking of questions, we'll get into this right now. You will probably notice that you are muted and off camera, and will be that way through the duration of this webinar. The only people you will see and hear are myself and the folks from NYCHA. We do encourage questions, very much so, and if you have them, we ask you to write them into the question box or the Q&A box that you see there on your screen. The NYCHA staff will answer as many questions live during this broadcast as they can. We have allotted 20 minutes for Q&A at the end. However, if there are questions that remain unanswered after our hour is up, we will be answering those in writing and posting them on NYCHA's Access Solar webpage, which you see on the screen there. Keep in mind that the only official answers are those that are written and posted. The verbal answers that you may receive today are not official until you see them in writing. And finally, if you miss any part of this webinar or would like to view it again, or would like to suggest that your friends or colleagues view it again, we are going to be posting it on the Sustainable CUNY website, nysolarmap.com, and you see the URL there for our webinars and podcasts page. Just to answer the question of why is Sustainable CUNY involved in this, we've actually collaborated with NYCHA for more than a decade on their solar program. This started long before I came to Sustainable CUNY and will probably continue long after I leave. But we have used our technology, our LiDAR, which is part of our New York Solar Map, to assess the potential of more than 2,000 buildings in NYCHA's portfolio, and to identify those that are the best candidates for solar installations. Back in 2017, we assisted in the development of the first RFP for NYCHA's commercial solar program. And then the following year, assisted in putting together the solicitation and the evaluation process for the ACCESSolar program. We're proud, we're delighted to continue to support NYCHA as it strives towards its goal of 30 megawatts by 2026. And this is part of our continuing service to NYCHA. So that's my introduction. I'm going to turn it over now to Siobhan Watson, the Deputy Director of Sustainability Programs, to talk to you about the agency and its sustainability agenda. Siobhan?
Thank you, Ron, and thanks everybody for coming today. We appreciate your interest in our solar program. and we're excited to have you and answer any questions you may have. So just to provide a little bit of background before we dive into the program in particular, NYCHA is really a city within a city. It serves close to 500,000 low-income New Yorkers, about 1 in every 15 people citywide. So NYCHA housing is a critical resource in the city. It serves many of the public servants, low and moderate income workers that the whole city relies on. In fact, the first employer of NYCHA residents is the Department of Education. Second most frequent employer is the police department. The third is NYCHA itself. So filling some really critical job needs in the city. At the same time, NYCHA is a landlord that services over 335 campuses, 2,000 buildings, 177,000 apartments. Next slide, please. NYCHA is working hard to upgrade housing quality and rehabilitate the over 2,000 buildings in the portfolio to ensure that this resource continues to serve its residents for generations to come. As we work to upgrade NYCHA housing, it's essential that we create more efficient, sustainable, and resilient buildings and campuses. And NYCHA's sustainability department, which Chris, Claudette, Egan, and I are all a part of, is charged with the mission of integrating sustainability into NYCHA's work across its portfolio. ACCESSolar is part of that mission. We thank you for participating in this important program. Our first sustainability agenda was published in 2016. It aimed to install 25 megawatts of solar capacity across the portfolio. The updated agenda released in 2021 expanded that goal to 30 megawatts, which we aim to install by 2026. We have 10 megawatts that have been installed or are in design and construction already. The solicitation makes over 10 more megawatts of capacity available, and we'll continue to build on that work in the coming years. Next slide. So our solar work is not the only commitment NYCHA has made. The sustainability team is also working on expanding green infrastructure, creating new infrastructure for recycling and composting, electrifying building heating and hot water systems, and increasing building efficiency. As we do that, creating opportunities for NYCHA residents to participate in this work is a priority for all of us. And to that end, we have recently partnered with the Public Housing Community Fund and LaGuardia Community College to launch the Clean Energy Academy, which you'll hear more about in this webinar. And that's a really important part of this round of the solicitation that we're releasing now. So again, thank you for your interest in participating in NYCHA's sustainability work. We hope we're able to answer any questions you may have, and we look forward to working with you. We will move on now to Chris White, Program Manager for Solar Initiatives in the Sustainability Department. Chris, take it away.
Thank you. So yeah, I think I will start by just giving an overview of NYCHA's 30 megawatt solar program and our goals. As Siobhan said, this started with a commitment in 2016. For 25 megawatts, this has grown to 30 megawatts. Our goal is to host 30 megawatts of solar capacity by 2026, supporting city and state goals to reduce carbon emissions as well. With this solar goal, we are hoping to also reach a number of other important objectives. We're hoping to generate lease revenue to fund building operations. We definitely want to reduce energy costs for people who are energy burdened, especially low and moderate income members of the community, including those NYCHA residents who pay their own electric bills, Section 8 voucher holders, and other low and moderate income households across New York City. It's also very important to provide green jobs and training for NYCHA residents as a part of these projects. And we do have as a goal under the ACCESSolar program to help build capacity for really a citywide solar pipeline that's community driven and has like local solar developers and community-based organizations as a part of this work. So those are just some of our really overarching goals in this program. Next slide, please. So to talk a little bit more about ACCESSolar, accelerating community empowered shared solar, and how we came around to this model. Really, the idea behind ACCESSolar is that this is a way for us to deploy community benefit solar at scale on public housing without diverting other diverting capital funds from our other needs, because we do have a lot of other needs, a lot of other things that we need to do with our dollars. This is a way to really use one of our resources, which is our rooftops, to help build solar without really dipping into those other funds. This builds on previous solar efforts. We had our first RFP in 2017 and a previous round of ACCESSolar in 2018, which led to our first signed leases in 2019 and construction on these projects beginning in 2020. All ACCESSolar projects are front of meter roof leases, where NYCHA is not using the power. We are not buying the power. We are not funding this project. We are serving as a landlord and a roof host. This is in large part because we get our power from the New York Power Authority that has very low rates. We've run the numbers, and unfortunately, power purchase agreements, for instance, they did not make sense when we tried to run the numbers previously. They still do not make sense. So we are sticking with our roof leases for community solar. However, as a part of these leases, we are building in these NYCHA hiring commitments and the commitments to subscribe LMI New Yorkers and to save money on their electric bills. Another benefit of this model is that the roof lease does allow for additional flexibility in proposal development. So you will put together your proposals. We'll do our site visits. We will do our due diligence, and if things come up, if things need to be changed, this model allows for some flexibility to keep the projects going in response to conditions. Next slide, please. So this is just a little diagram. I'm sure many of you are familiar with community shared solar or remote net crediting. It goes by a number of different names, but basically this says how it works. We serve as the host site. The solar panels, which are front of meter, export electricity to the grid. The subscribers get credits on their bill. They pay a subscription payment to the system owner, who is the lessee who financed and built these systems. But what they pay the system owner is less than what they would have paid to Con Ed, and then the system owner gives a lease payment to NYCHA. So that's really a high level overview of what we're trying to do here. And then I will pass it to Egan to talk a little bit about some of the sites that are going to be offered in this solicitation, the bundles that we have. So pass it off to Egan, my colleague at NYCHA. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. One more slide. Just before I do that, just a little more deep dive into what our project teams and what our project scales are going to be. Our idea is the interested proposers should be forming teams to cover all aspects of the project. So solar development, installation, design, financing, resident hiring and training, subscriber enrollment, all that good stuff. And we do definitely hope that this is an opportunity for solar developers and community organizations to build capacity for additional solar development across the city. So yeah, before we get into the bundles, just wanted to say as a high level overview, there's over 10 megawatts of solar potentially available through this solicitation. Our goal here is to focus on roofs that are in good condition. All the sites have roofs that were installed really within the past, no older than about 6 years old. I think there's a couple sites where there's the roofs are finishing construction right now, and also sites that don't have other programmatic commitments in our current known planning horizon. So we do know that there are a number of developments that are transitioning to private management over the next few years. None of these sites are in that list, just as an example. So I will be handing it over now to Egan to talk a little more about the site bundles.
Thank you, Chris. As Chris mentioned, this solicitation includes a total of 309 buildings across 21 separate developments, and we're aiming for approximately 10 megawatts of potential total installed capacity. As Chris mentioned a little bit about the 6 bundles, they're grouped based on factors that include the location, the site characteristics, utility service areas, and also to ensure that we can facilitate multiple opportunities for bidders to respond to these these groups of sites. So why did we select the campuses that we did? Well, in general, we tried to identify larger campuses, roofs that were in good condition, mainly those that have not had replacements or have had replacements from 2017 onward, not slated, as Chris mentioned, to transition to third-party management. And in most cases, with the exception being our sixth bundle, we looked for campuses that were under 100 feet in height. And as Ron mentioned, ran some LiDAR estimates and accounted for existing uses on those buildings, so bulkheads, other obstructions. In a couple of cases, we had generators on the rooftops, and then lastly, the maintenance clear paths. And then finally, we grouped these into bundles that are in relative proximity to one another geographically. Just thinking from a logistical perspective to make the installation process run a little bit more smoothly, ideally. So each of these bundles, and I'll go through them here in a moment, each of these bundles has a minimum development size requirement. And basically the thinking behind this is that we wanted to ensure bidders were including at least 2 developments in each bundle. So if you look at the minimum proposal requirements on that bottom row there, you'll see varying ranges of potential installed capacity. You'll note that the minimum threshold will require developers to include at least 2 developments in their proposal to meet the required minimum that we've set there. So quickly, you'll go through the bundles. The first bundle is the Brooklyn Queens Demand Response Zone, and that includes the developments of Cooper Park in East Williamsburg, Cypress Hills in East New York, and Sumner in Bed-Stuy. The second one is Northern Brooklyn with a 1.5 megawatt minimum threshold, and that includes Red Hook East, Red Hook West, as well as Marcy and Bed-Stuy. Thirdly, we've got South Brooklyn with a 1.6 megawatt minimum threshold that has Brook Ellen and Sheepshead Bay. So you can kind of see that all of these are, regionally proximal to one another. Our fourth bundle is located in Queens. That includes Ravenswood and Astoria. And we've also added in South Jamaica 1 and South Jamaica 2 as potential developments to look at there. The fifth bundle is located up in the Bronx. This is a little bit smaller, just given the roof types, but this includes Monroe, Patterson, Butler, and Bronx River houses. Lastly, the final group, bundle 6, we've gone with a group of high rises for this bundle, and high rises are located in Brooklyn and Manhattan as well. This includes Albany 1 and 2, located in Crown Heights, Farragut houses, which is located in downtown Brooklyn, Smith houses in Lower East Side, and Grant houses up in Morningside Heights. So that's kind of the layout of the bundles, and we'll take questions later. But at this point, I'd like to pass it over to Claudia Pichardo.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Egan. So I'm going to be going over our site visits and Q&A. So while our site visits are not required, we highly recommend the proposers attend them. And you can find the schedule of site visits in the solicitation as Exhibit A. They'll be held over a 2-week period beginning next week, Monday the 22nd, and ending Friday, June 2nd. All interested parties need to RSVP through NYCHA's ACCESSolar email prior to the day of the visit. So any proposers interested in attending that first visit on Monday should RSVP by this Friday. The visits will include 1 or 2 representative rooftops, so 1 to 2 buildings per development and 1 to 2 electrical rooms per development. And proposers will also be accompanied by NYCHA staff. So that will be someone from NYCHA Sustainability and some of our field inspectors. Proposers may request additional site visits through our NYCHA ACCESSolar email no later than June 2nd. NYCHA will attempt to schedule, but cannot guarantee staff availability. So any folks who would like to attend those, please try your best to be available for the pre-scheduled visits. And for our Q&As, all questions will also go through the ACCESSolar email, and the submission deadline is also the end of Friday on June 2nd. All answers will be posted on the NYCHA ACCESSolar website by June 16th. So that's 2 weeks after the submission deadline. I'm going to pass it back to Chris. We can change slides.
Thanks so much, Egan and Claudette. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more of a deep dive into what are the things that the project developers, the project developer teams need to do, and what NYCHA will also be doing, and then another bit of a deep dive into the proposal packaging and submission requirements. So as you can see here, first and foremost, the project developer is responsible for finding and securing financing and full ownership of the system over the course of the entire lease. NYCHA is not cannot cover any costs for these projects. That is a legal requirement on our end. Project developer will own, operate, and maintain the systems for the lifetime of the lease agreement. These leases are a 20-year base term with an optional 5-year extension, and the lease template is included as one of the attachments. As a note, just all attachments are available by emailing that ACCESSolar website. So if you want to get those attachments and take a look at the sample lease agreement, please send in your requests to the ACCESSolar website. Also, the lessee will be responsible for decommissioning and removing the system at the end of the lease and restoring the site to its previous condition. The project developer is responsible for design, construction and commissioning, including all permitting and interconnection approvals. And one thing that is very important is that wherever there are existing roof warranties, and there will be existing roof warranties, they must be maintained. And the project developer must provide us with a plan for how you will maintain the roof warranties and follow through that plan, which we expect would involve a standard process for each roofing manufacturer, pre and post walkthroughs, et cetera. But yeah, that is also a core responsibility of the project developer. Next slide, please. The developer is responsible for operations maintenance, safety and security, designing the system in such a way as to prevent risks to NYCHA staff and residents during construction and operation, and also to have procedures that will respond to incidents if and when they arise. Project developer is additionally responsible for other quantitative commitments under the lease. Very importantly, they must include a lease payment to NYCHA, which we'll talk a little bit more about how that will be presented in the packaging later. But there does need to be some level of lease payment to ensure that benefits flow to the residents at the site, to all the residents at the sites where solar is being hosted. This is especially important because most of our developments are master metered and most of our residents do not pay their own electric bills. So having that lease payment that can help fund operations at that site is very important. We also do want to ensure that low and moderate income New Yorkers are able to subscribe to these arrays and save money on their electric bills. Our minimum standard is a 10% bill credit discount off using the VETR rate, and generally we would like to see at least 50% of the power be reserved for LMI households. This is a raising of the standard. Our previous rounds had a 20% threshold, and 20% is still like the absolute minimum threshold, but we would like to see 50%. Our proposers are encouraged to develop a plan that targets Section 8 households and those NYCHA residents who do pay their own electric bills. There are several thousand households for which that is the case, and proposers who are able to do that targeted outreach that is very much encouraged. And also, as far as the low and moderate income subscriptions, we would want to have some sort of have it be some sort of verifiable subscription to ensure that the benefits are flowing to these households. But we also don't really want to dig into people's personal information. So generally, we generally try to ask for proxies, such as enrolling residents that are in 100% affordable housing or are enrolled in the utilities low income bill programs, for instance. So I'm going to now pass it back to Egan to talk a little bit about the training and hiring and the Clean Energy Academy part of these projects.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So project developers are expected and obligated to work with NYCHA to train and hire NYCHA residents for these construction projects. And NYCHA standard is that 25% of the total labor hours for any construction project be worked on by NYCHA residents. While this isn't necessarily a legal requirement, it is a programmatic requirement for this ACCESSolar round. Project developers are also required to work with our colleagues over at NYCHA RES, the Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability team, and help ID qualified residents, particularly those who are living at developments with solar construction slated to occur. Lastly, the project developers are also expected to coordinate with the NYCHA Clean Energy Academy, which will be training a cohort of NYCHA residents in solar installation, workforce preparation, safety training, building electrification, and that's slated to that particular cohort, that solar PV cohort, is slated to occur in spring 2024. So with that, they'll also be expected to interview NYCHA Clean Energy Academy graduates for available jobs that they may have at that time. So that'll be another expectation. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about the Clean Energy Academy, and we can be happy to answer some questions in the Q&A round on this, but it's the workforce training program that's looking to prepare the NYCHA residents for careers in the clean energy sector. And the goal of the program is over these first 2 years, we just kicked off at the end of April. The goal is to provide 100 NYCHA residents an opportunity for green jobs training, education, and also career mentorship, as well as a lot of other things that we're offering with the program, so including different wraparound services. So really the goal, this program is set out to meet the hiring needs of NYCHA's energy efficiency and renewable energy contractors who have projects at NYCHA developments, but also leverage the trades through their direct entry apprenticeship programs, ultimately accelerating building decarbonization with a customized trained workforce of NYCHA residents here at NYCHA. So we're, as I mentioned, our first cohort kicked off in the end of April. We've got 26 really engaged residents who have entered the program, and they're all on track at the moment to graduate. That'll occur in early August, and at that point we'll start our second cohort that's focused on energy efficiency as well. So happy to answer questions in the Q&A, but in brief, that's the Clean Energy Academy. I'm going to pass it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Egan. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of NYCHA's responsibilities under this program, and then we'll get into the timeline for and proposal packaging requirements. So obviously, first and foremost, if we're leasing our roof space, we need to be able to provide access. So we're serving as a roof host. I will coordinate for site access. We are not designing these plans, but we are going to be reviewing them really to ensure the safety and residents safety of residents and staff, and to ensure that the plans don't impact our maintenance needs. So really, there's conformance with the FDNY clear paths, but also to make sure that maintenance staff that are doing work on our elevators are able to sort of move normally around the roof post construction. To that end, we also may perform periodic safety inspections, do commissioning review, and we'll have the responsibility and the ability to step in case there are emergencies. Also, on a programmatic level, we will be doing coordination with Reese, Clean Energy Academy, our resident engagement departments, in order to facilitate the resident hiring and subscription and any other community outreach goals of this program. Next slide, please. So just quickly go over some of the key solicitation deadlines. The webpage went up on April 21st. We had our first round of Q&A, which we will be releasing the answers to those questions later this week, along with questions that came up during this webinar. By the end of this week, they should be going live on Thursday. We have site visits the next 2 weeks. Please RSVP to accessolar@nycha.nyc.gov to be a part of them. We also have our final day for the additional questions on June 2nd, and the deadline for submission of a proposal will be on July 6th. Next slide. So how do you submit a proposal? All proposals are to be submitted again to the ACCESSolar email, accessolar@nycha.nyc.gov, by the end of the day on July 6th. They need to include all of the narrative sections as listed in section 3.2 of the solicitation. That's the part that really details what every section is going to be, as well as the filled out attachments and other supplementary materials. So things like copies of resumes, proposed Gantt chart for construction, etc. You may also include supplementary material such as like marketing brochures, sample plans, cut sheets, stuff like that. Comments on the lease agreement template will be very welcome as a part of your proposal. For the attachments, so the main proposal and all the exhibits are hosted on our website. You can look at the solicitation there. To get copies of the attachments, email ACCESSolar and we will send them over to you. One other important thing to note is that these proposals are there is flexibility built into this solicitation. These proposals are a basis for negotiation, and even after they are accepted, we understand that there may need to be like a little bit of back and forth in order to really make sure we're responding to all the site conditions, market conditions, etc. So they may be modified as necessary on either end until the point that a lease agreement is signed. Next slide. So just a quick, I'll try to go through these slides pretty quickly because I think we want to leave some time for Q&A, but just a little bit of a deep dive on each of the sections in the proposal. Cover page is really just something that's a summary that we can share with like other stakeholders. Needs to include the lead proposer, team member contact, the headline qualitative commitments. So how much lease payment, what's the LMI commitment, what are the NYCHA resident hiring, what is that going to look like? Section number 1 is information on all your team members. So like the lead proposer, if you have your installers, if you have financing identified at this time, any hiring or subscription management organizations, anything like that. So just like detailing all of those. And then there's a couple attachments for really due diligence purposes. Attachment C and D for just proof of business entity and sort of some minimum requirements. And note for the minimum requirements, it can be anyone on the team that meets those requirements. Section 2 is really like the meat of the construction plan. So like the listing of what sites you're proposing to build solar on. And this can be a sort of like across any number of bundles. You can have a proposal that includes every single bundle. You can have a proposal that includes just one bundle. These but yeah, just include it all there. then also like a deployment and construction plan, really trying to focus on how are we going to make sure this this gets built in a safe and efficient way, including items such as sample layouts and product cut sheets. Next slide, please. As a part of the site listing, I just wanted to highlight attachment E, which is basically an Excel sheet with a number of tabs, one tab for each bundle. This is where you're going to officially say, these are the sites we want to build on. This is how much we think we can build on each of the sites, what we think our estimated kilowatt capacity is going to be, and what the lease rate is going to be. And the lease rate is meant to be a really on a per kilowatt basis. It's like scaled to the size of the proposal. So basically, you fill in the items in the yellow boxes, and it pre-populates. And there is a tab for every single bundle, so you can fill in as many bundles as you wish. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that attachment specifically because it is particularly important. Next slide, please. So we'll just breeze through these other proposal sections. A section on operations, maintenance, and security. As section 2 focused on construction, this is really talking about what's going to happen post-construction, responding to incidents, making sure you're keeping the system in good shape, stuff like that. Also trying to respond to any sort of really like safety and security needs and vandalism risks, because we know that we do unfortunately know that is a risk when building on NYCHA property. And the operations maintenance will also include the commitments on decommissioning the system at the end of the lease. Section 4, project financing. I just want to talk. I know a little bit about how are you going to get this thing financed and built. Obviously, if you have financing on board at this time, that's great. We understand that may not be the case for every project team, that sometimes financing comes in later. If that's the case, then really just detail how you're gonna bring them in. So like, what's the financing and what's like the long-term ownership structure going to be? Section 5 is like a brief narrative section, also in conjunction with attachment E. What are the lease payments, and also are there any other benefits for the NYCHA residents at the developments that you're able to, any other creative ideas that you're able to bring into this proposal. Proposers are not required, but they are encouraged to provide a pro forma that justifies the proposed lease rate. Section 6 is NYCHA resident hiring, detailing your outreach and training approach and coordination with the Clean Energy Academy, as Egan was talking about. And Section 7, detailing how you're going to make sure that the subscription benefits flow to low and moderate income New Yorkers and that they are getting bill discounts. Next slide, please. And then we'll just wrap this up with any sort of big ticket comments you have on the sample template lease agreement, and then any additional information or exceptions that you have to these proposal terms, or any of like the terms and conditions that are listed as exhibits in this solicitation. Note there is if there are any items in your proposal that need to remain confidential and should be exempt from FOIL, please note that. So for example, something like the pro forma, we would expect that would need to remain confidential. Next slide, please. So this table is in the solicitation, but just wanted to go through. These are the categories that we'll be evaluating proposals on. This is a holistic evaluation where we're really trying to get the sort of the not just sort of like the best monetary value, but sort of the strongest construction plan, the strongest commitments across a number of axes. And as a note, these proposals will be evaluated bundle by bundle. So there could be sort of multiple. If you submit for a number of bundles, you may be awarded an opportunity for a lease agreement for some of them. Next slide, please. And yeah, so during the evaluation process, which will take place in July and August, we may ask for some interviews, some presentations. There may be some questions. We do have the right to request a best and final offer if you want to change any of the numbers on the presentation. And like I said, the proposers will be ranked by our committee on a bundle by bundle basis. So there could be anywhere from 1 to 6 proposals that are selected. It's who is the best proposer for that bundle. So next slide, please. So once the evaluation committee has made its decision, we will inform all proposers. And then at that point, we would move forward into doing site due diligence and negotiating a lease agreement. Our goal is to try to get these lease agreements negotiated slightly faster than we've done in the past. In the past, we were really doing this the first time, and there was a lot of back and forth. We are hoping to get it down to a 6-month time frame. And so during that time frame, you'll be able to have a license agreement to go on site and do any due diligence, and like basically take a look at more of the roofs and more of the electrical rooms. There may be edits to the proposal. Also during this period, before any lease is signed, we do require a proof of insurance that is listed, that's detailed in the solicitation, and then going through a vendor name check process that's also detailed. That process generally takes a few months, and we'll work with selected project developers on that. And then at the end, like once the lease is negotiated, all the narrative sections of the proposal will be included as an attachment to the lease. So they're memorialized in the lease document. One thing I forgot to mention, but I just want to mention here, as far as due diligence goes, teams are welcome to ask the ACCESSolar email for other sort of other information about sort of building conditions during the Q&A process, and we can try to provide stuff like roof as-built and like roof warranties and stuff like that. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is just going to talk a little bit about the process once awards have been made. The proposal deadline is July 6th. We'll be evaluating teams in July and August. We hope to make our award by the end of August, and then once that happens, there'll be that period for pre-development, lease negotiation, site assessment, and then our plan is to hopefully get these things built in 2024, and I also line it up with our solar cohort at the Clean Energy Academy. All right, next slide, please. I'm just going to go through a couple quick questions and answers that we've previously received, and then we'll open the floor up for other Q&A. So a couple other questions that have come up. Question: is this prevailing wage project? Since we do not cover the capital cost or use the power, this is not considered public work. That said, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there are some investment tax credit adders that that might be of use to you, that might require prevailing wage, and project developers are certainly encouraged to access any and all incentives in order to maximize benefit, including benefit to NYCHA residents who are hired to build these projects. Question 2: who will own the system? These are third-party roof leases. That will be either the project developer or a long-term owner financing party that the project developer brings in during lease negotiation. And then question 3: do you need to submit preliminary layouts? They are not required, but they are definitely welcome. They will help us. They will definitely help us evaluate your proposals. But it is not a strict requirement. Next slide, please. All right, I think that's the end of our prepared section. We'll just leave it now for some Q&A. Claudette, you want to throw us some questions?
Yeah, so we have some questions in the chat. So the first is, have there been any roofing studies done for solar buildability? And if so, can NYCHA provide those studies?
Okay, I think I can answer that. We did not have specific studies for every single development here, but there were, I believe there were some studies done a long time ago confirming that NYCHA developments are generally able to hold solar, especially developments where these roofs are going to have been recently replaced in the past 5-6 years. Um, at the end of the day, the project developer is responsible for all permitting and submissions, sort of structural wind tests, etc. But we do expect that all of these developments would be able to hold solar.
Okay, awesome. And our next question, do buildings under a development have a separate meter? If they have separate meters, do they have different interconnection points for each building?
Okay, I can also answer that one. This is also something we did when we were choosing sites. As a general rule, all of the buildings in these developments, or almost all of them, each have their own individual meter. We understand that if there are developments where it's just one meter for the entire development, that makes it harder to do front of the meter community solar. Um, but yeah, I believe it is the case with maybe one or two exceptions at the most, that all of these buildings have their own meter. And generally, it's going to be 1 meter per building.
Okay, next, and feel free to put some more questions in our Q&A. So next question is, what are the eligibility requirements to enroll in the program? This is for Clean Energy Academy. Who is responsible for marketing? NYCHA, the proposer, and are they paid? There are a few more questions on the list, but Egan, I'll let you, if you want to answer that one.
Oh, thanks, Claudette. Okay, so eligibility requirements to enroll in the program. You must be a NYCHA resident. And this current cohort, you must be fully vaccinated for this cohort at least 2 weeks before classes start. You have to be at least 18 years of age as well, and have a high school or graduated high school, or have an equivalent certification. On our NYCHA residents put through their
I can read that one out. Our NYCHA residents put through apprenticeship on a path to full-time employment with a proposer.
I mean that's would be built into the proposal. It's not a requirement, but we would, strongly suggest that you do provide pathways for full-time employment following the construction.
So what do people usually receive at the end of the apprenticeship? A badge, a
Okay.
degree, certificate?
Oh, so certifications include the NCCER core construction certification, 30-hour OSHA training, 10-hour site safety training, includes fall prevention and drug and alcohol awareness, 4-hour flagger training, 4-hour scaffold user training, and lastly, they get some information on asbestos and confined space awareness. I think that's all of them, but those are the certifications.
Okay, yeah, and there's a question about the structure of the program and who to speak to about the curriculum for Clean Energy Academy.
Well, that would be me. So I can provide my email address in the chat bar, but we can also, I'll just do that now.
Yeah, well, Egan, unfortunately, the attendees can't see the chat. So maybe if they write into the ACCESSolar at NYCHA.nyc.gov mailbox, you can respond and provide that information.
That sounds good. Thanks, Ron.
And we have some more questions. So question for Chris, will there be a phase 2 that totals up to 30 megawatts by 2026?
I think that is certainly our plan. I think we are going to keep at this until we hit 30 megawatts, and the Access Solar roof leases are, it's not the only path to us hitting 30 megawatts, but it is definitely the largest. I would say the timeline on that is we don't have any more details at this point. We're taking this one solicitation at a time, but we do expect that there would likely be another round after this.
And a question on what other benefits NYCHA facilities want to have.
So yeah, I would say on that, I'm also seeing I'm seeing anchor subscription. I mean, in general, we definitely want to have a we're definitely open to models that include anchor subscribers to the power. We do want to make sure that that the that a threshold is being reserved for low and moderate income households. But models that include anchor subscribers are certainly welcome. As far as other benefits, I think that's really a space for you and your team to get creative.
So we have another question on Clean Energy Academy, and if we can provide some clarity on the expectation of solely sourcing residents from the program.
So developers are required to coordinate with the Clean Energy Academy, and will be expected to interview NYCHA Clean Energy Academy graduates and commit to interviewing graduates of the academy.
All right, thank you, Egan. And how were the minimum proposal requirements determined for the solicitation?
I can jump in on that. I think basically the idea is we want to make sure that we are maximizing the solar capacity of these sites that can host solar, but also build in a certain amount of uncertainty and flexibility. Basically, the idea is for every bundle, we would expect the successful proposer to be building solar on multiple developments within that bundle. And some of these and the reason some of the minimum requirements are closer to the maximum is, for example, in South Brooklyn, that bundle only has 2 developments, which are both like pretty solid. We expect there would be solar on all those buildings, but there may be other bundles where the winning sort of the best proposal does not necessarily have solar on every single building. So it really comes down to the characteristics of that building. Yeah, I'm seeing there's a couple other things I can quickly answer. I think I saw there's one. Will tenants be participating in the selection? We do plan on having a NYCHA resident on the selection committee. So that is our answer on that. And as far as citing batteries, you are welcome to include batteries in your proposal. We do expect that that doing so might require higher insurance levels. It may require additional rounds of design review and permitting. But if including batteries leads to a proposal that has more benefits, then we're certainly open to it. And as far as sharing warranty documents, you can make that request to the ACCESSolar website, and we will provide what we can.
So we have another question about EPCs and whether they can participate in multiple bids and developers.
Yes, I would say the answer is yes. I think yeah.
And we have another question that didn't come through our chat, but was asked previously. And it's what are NYCHA's plans in terms of subscriber acquisitions and management of these projects?
And I would say the answer to that is that subscriber management organizations subscriber management is a crucial role to play in these projects, and we do expect that proposals will include organizations that fulfill that role. So subscriber management organizations are sort of welcome and encouraged to form teams with proposers to be a part of these proposals. I think I think we will get all these questions down, and then also just respond to them officially in writing. Thank you for all these great questions. We have anything else? Yep. I thank you for got the last slide. Yep. ACCESSolar at NYCHA.nyc.gov. That's your one-stop shop for site visits, getting attachments, any additional questions, proposal submissions, additional information. Just anything you have, just send it right there. All right. I think that is just about it. Thank you so much. I'm gonna hand it off to Ron for to wrap us up.
Thank you, Chris. I think this was an excellent webinar, a lot of information, a lot of things to digest and think about. But we had a good group participating. We want to thank all of our attendees for dialing in, and we hope to either see you at the site visits or see your proposals as they're submitted. Again, if you have any questions, they should be directed to the email address that you see on the screen there, accesssolar@nycha.nyc.gov. On behalf of Sustainable CUNY, I want to thank our friends and colleagues at NYCHA for participating, thank our attendees for attending, and we're looking forward to a successful solicitation. So with that, we'll draw this to a close and say good afternoon, enjoy the rest of the day.